So thank you very much for all being here. And that last song is This Land Is Your Land, written by the legendary Woody Guthrie in the midst of the Great Depression. It became an anthem to what America could be, and his words are as important as they were 80 years ago. Our charge is to build a better home for all of us, and we know what has to be done, and we can do it. That is what the 12 of us were elected to do on this journey ahead. I'm grateful to be here with all of you, and I want to start by thanking my family for all their love and support. We're all surrounded by a community that enables us to succeed. I'm truly grateful for my community, without whom I would not be before you today. I'm pleased to be here with this historic county council. You've heard people talk about how historic it is. When I first broached the idea of expanding the council, we discussed the impact it could make on diversity. I don't think any of us imagined that this would be the result. A majority women, 6 new women, and a council more diverse than ever. So for the skeptics who didn't think that would happen, it happened. I want to welcome all of our new council members and the returning council members, and I look forward to working with each of you for the betterment of Montgomery County. We also made history at the state. I'm very excited to work with our Governor-elect Moore, Lieutenant Governor Miller, and thank you for joining us today, Comptroller-elect Lehrman, and Attorney General-elect Brown. This is a truly historic slate of leaders who all understand how important Montgomery County's success is to the priorities of the state, and I look forward to a great partnership with each of them. I want to recognize our partners in education, Dr. Monifa McKnight, Dr. Jermaine Williams, and Dr. Ann Kadamian. Your leadership is key to keeping Montgomery County's reputation as the education and workforce capital of our state and the region, and I do appreciate your leadership. Thank you. And finally, I look forward to working with our state delegation, too numerous to name, but it's led by our good friends, Senator Ben Kramer and Delegate Julie Polakovich-Carr. And you've got a big job ahead of you, but I assure you that our county, all of us, are ready to stand with you to make sure we all succeed. So please join me in giving all our elected officials and county leaders another round of applause. So 4 years ago, I stood before you, and I don't think any of us could have predicted what we'd be dealing with. A global pandemic, an economic disruption of a great magnitude, an attempted insurrection, and so much more. And by the way, isn't it good to be in a place where people say they will uphold the Constitution? But it was COVID that really changed our lives. And when I saw the images of New York City, where body bags of COVID victims were being dragged out of buildings, I was determined that that was not going to happen here. And because of our collective efforts, we succeeded. The death rate from COVID in Montgomery County was only 2/3 the national average. And if the other 3 counties had followed our lead and had the same results of us, there would be over 300,000 fewer dead Americans. That's what we did meant. So thank you all for the role you played in making that happen. Today, we're the most vaccinated large jurisdiction in this country, and we did that by turning to our community partners who helped us reach deeper into our communities and enabled us to achieve high rates of vaccinations for all our residents, including residents who normally might not have been as successful in getting vaccinated. Our success cannot be credited to any one leader or institution. It was accomplished by our collective and communal response to this unprecedented health threat. I want to thank the public for following the science-based advice. I want to thank our amazing county workforce that pivoted in a matter of days to mobilize and fight COVID. I want to thank the doctors and nurses and all the healthcare workers for your selflessness. You put your lives on the line to keep people safe. And I also want to thank the people we referred to as the essential workers on the front lines of grocery stores and shops that were kept open, keeping things clean and ready. And they did all of that while being some of the lowest paid workers in our community. Someday we have to connect the word essential to decently paid people. And I want to thank our incredible nonprofit partners, many of whom are here today, who are helping to increase testing, vaccinating, and providing access to food and other necessities for those in need. These collective efforts saved lives. So I'm not going to tell you COVID's gone. It's not. But we have far more tools to use if we need them. But there was always a bigger picture, and we always knew that every problem that faced us coming into office would be staring at us when we emerged from COVID. So while we were focused on public health, we did not let it deter us from working to move this county forward. We established our county's first Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice and appointed our first Chief Equity Officer. We passed an ambitious, extremely ambitious plan to address climate change. We right-sized our budget, going from a $90 million deficit in my first year to a surplus 4 years later. We made We made historic investments in educational funding, housing, early childhood education, and in transportation. And I am so looking forward to working with Governor Moore, who reiterated again this week that he wants to accelerate the expansion of early childhood education. We pivoted our service delivery to increase collaboration with our community partners. We made sure that county employees were fairly compensated. We worked with our business community to eliminate unnecessary regulations and speed up the permitting process, and there's still more work to do there. We built the county's first year-round homeless shelter. And I want to tell you how that happened. We were sitting in a meeting a year and a half ago, and I asked, because we all thought this was going to be over, not last summer, but the summer before, and I said, so what happens to the homeless people who are in our rec centers? And I was told they go back to the streets. I said, then and there in that meeting, that's not going to happen. I told our folks to build the shelter. We built the shelter. September that year, we had it in planning. March of this year, we opened it. Less than a year to go from an idea to an open shelter. Over 200 beds. We worked with police and with community groups, and I think my prompter is stuck, to begin reimagining public safety and provide more transparency and accountability. And we also increased resources and pay. Resources, we've got more people working on the streets as mental health people than we've ever had before, and police pay is once again comparable with the other jurisdictions in this region, which it was not. And we did all this while maintaining our AAA bond rating and without increasing taxes. The county's taken on big projects, starting bus rapid transit, making county properties available for new affordable housing, and starting up a new Montgomery College campus in the East County. And a couple of weeks ago, we announced a new partnership with the University of Maryland system to create an Institute for Health Computing in North Bethesda, which the Dean of the University Medical System said would make us the Silicon Valley of health computing. And if anything takes time, this is a perfect example. It took me 3 years to get this project put together, but it was well worth the time and effort. This initiative will provide leading-edge computing, data visualization, and AI research, along with the talent from the University of Maryland and the population data from the University of Maryland medical system. With our proximity to federal research institutions and a trained workforce and an ecosystem of booming life science and advanced computing companies, something very important and something very special is going to grow here. We're changing the narrative about the economic future of this county from pessimism to optimism. Too often we can be our worst enemies and allow well-funded political forces to dictate a manufactured false and negative narrative about this county. But the stars are now aligning for a renaissance in our economy built on the foundation that this county has always been known for, a robust education system with a highly educated and highly trained workforce. That is us. When 75% of the voters this November voted to re-elect me, they sent with them a message. They want to continue the progress that we've made together, and I'm focusing on delivering on this promise. We are, no doubt, one of the best places to live, work, and raise a family, yet we face serious challenges. Our challenge in the broadest sense is to build one county for all of us, where our fates are not determined by our zip codes. So I want to address 4 of the big challenges, and there are more than 4. If I don't name them all, forgive me, but I have a time limit. So I'm going to focus on what I think are 4 of the most important. And the first is affordable housing, which is our greatest challenge. We're at a tipping point. And this county, well-intentioned as it may be, has spent too long in a fantasy land when it comes to solving this problem. In the mid-'70s, we launched a program, what was then a signature housing program, called the Moderately Priced Dwelling Unit Program. This program was designed to serve teachers, firefighters, and police officers, because these were the people struggling to find housing in the community. Think about what we know about that today. At that time, our county was 95% white, 4.5% black, 0.5% other, and the economics of our residents skewed differently than they do today. Today, the county has tens of thousands of people who struggle to find housing at lower incomes than the MPDU program serves. In other words, we don't build anything for them. Our nonprofits can't produce enough units to meet our needs. Our MPDU program, which requires developers to provide only 12.5% to 15% of the units they build to be affordable, it doesn't work. We have tens of thousands of households who are severely rent burdened, paying 50% or more of their income for rents, for whom nothing is being built. Nothing. And the future projections of who's going to move here will actually make those numbers worse. Current policies won't create the housing we need, and the math simply doesn't work. And you all are smart enough to know the math. If I get 15% of new market units as affordable, it doesn't come close to meeting the existing projected needs. The gap, it's like something like 50,000 units. That's not even close. Reagan-esque trickle-down economics suggests that just building more market housing will solve the affordable housing crisis. Anything associated with Reagan should be immediately dismissed. But the market doesn't build any more affordable housing than governments require them to build. And that's a sad and sorry fact. When I was at the end of my tenure on COG with the Transportation Planning Board, and Sharon Bulova from Fairfax County got up, and she said, developers do not build any affordable housing that we don't require them to build. So if we want different outcomes, then we need different policies that actually create affordable housing. So we're going to propose taking aggressive steps to increase the county's supply of affordable housing by preserving our affordable housing stock, producing more affordable housing, and protecting tenants from displacement. we're going to propose legislation that requires no net loss of affordable housing when existing housing is replaced, that replaces our MPDU program with a program that expands the number of units required from the new development and serves a wider range of incomes so that everybody who needs housing can find it. And we're going to propose a rent stabilization program that will stop unconscionable rent increases that have plagued some of our renters who make up almost 40% of our county's population. If any of you can imagine, I know some of you can because I see your shirts back there, what it takes to make it in Montgomery County when you spend 50 and 60% of your income on housing, you know what a tough place we find ourselves in. Our rising rents cause us to lose more units every year than we create. And this has to stop. The next challenge we face is climate change, where the news only gets worse every day. And yet the world kind of dithers around the edges. Half measures are not going to stop this impending disaster. 5 years ago today, the Council passed the most aggressive climate goals in the country. There are many obstacles to progress, including climate deniers, the misbelief that there are no solutions, that we lack resources, or that we simply can't make a difference. People need models. They need success stories that show we can overcome the obstacles. And Montgomery County will continue to be that example of success. And this is how we're going to reduce our carbon footprint. We're going to help provide funding for buildings to transition from gas to electric. We're going to electrify our vehicle fleet using approaches to make this happen sooner rather than later. We're going to retrofit our county buildings for energy efficiency. We're going to expand the collection of food waste countywide and move to composting. We're going to expand the implementation of solar on rooftops, parking lots, and fields. And by financially assisting marginalized communities who are most often impacted by climate change, we're going to help them transition to clean energy. And we're going to shut down the dam incinerator, which is both a public health hazard and a climate change threat. In the end, we have to go on this journey as a community. This is not something government can do by itself. I want to talk a little bit about racial equity. A little less than 60 years ago, when Dr. King was in the halls of Congress lobbying for what was then landmark civil rights legislation, a reporter asked him how he felt about critics who said he was moving too fast. And King responded, quote, "They want us to wait another 40 years. 40 years has come and gone. And for almost every metric, I should probably take out the word almost, every metric of what we call success, whether it's health, home ownership, income, or educational attainment, Black people are at the bottom of the metric. We know that systemic racism exists and that inequalities permeate our system. That is reality. And we are working to do what we can to address this. Our new Thank you. Our new health officer will bring a focus on health in all policies in the county, including working with health providers in the county to broaden and increase the effectiveness of and access to our community health programs. We're going through a reevaluation of public safety because we know that adverse and/or unnecessary police interactions have a disproportionate racial impact. And we're creating a restoration center to divert more people from the criminal justice system. And we need to seriously rethink our approach to crime. Our jails are centers of punishment, not rehabilitation. We cycle people from jails to streets and back again and make it impossible for them to get jobs or to rent apartments. We think such a system will not to think that such a system will improve society is beyond me, and it's an expensive way to spend your money for very little result. We know that home ownership is one of the keys to bridging the racial wealth gap and creating generational wealth, and we are increasing the focus on home ownership. Our Racial Equity Office is examining both our operating and capital budgets to scrutinize spending from an equity perspective. And the East County campus of Montgomery College will open new doors to education. So I'm excited by our new partners in the state, as this is a priority of the new governor. We have many goals in common, and there's much we're going to work on together. And this is such a change from the last 8 years. You cannot imagine, maybe you can, what a big difference this has been. And then there's the growing economy. We're determined to drive economic development as a self-confessed progressive and environmentalist. I know we cannot build a better future without better jobs and more resources. Economic progress provides the resources to speed social progress, which costs money. Over the last 20 years, we watched Northern Virginia outpace us as they invested more in their transportation infrastructure and weaponized their education assets to better attract business. I've often said that if someone is eating your lunch, you should probably figure out how they got it. It was the story of how Virginia landed Amazon that drove me to find academic and research partners for our life sciences sector that resulted in the Institute for Health Computing coming to North Bethesda. In my tour of these companies, the thing they emphasized, we are the #4 life sciences center in the country. We are the only one lacking graduate level research. And we were determined to change that, and now we are changing that. And we're going to make investments in transit and education that we need to succeed. And knowing there's life beyond life sciences, we're going to continue to help the small businesses who are in so many ways the lifeblood of our county. With a new governor, a new comptroller, and a new General Assembly, we're going to get the right deal and project for I-270, I-495, and the American Legion Bridge to ease congestion, save motorists from high-cost tolls, and protect our environment and communities. And I've been asked to work with the governor's staff in addressing this problem, so I'm excited about this. So you may be curious as to what makes me tick. Some people are. I lived in this county since I was 10 years old. I moved from the District of Columbia. I went to my first anti-war demonstration in D.C. when I was 12. At 13, I went to the 1963 March on Washington. I protested the war in Vietnam until it ended. That was a long time. And I saw the toll it took on people throughout the country, and I especially was concerned about those who were forced to fight an unjust war for a country that would deny them their civil rights when they came home, while I sat safely in a classroom with my student deferment, which I eventually signed away. I saw racism up close as a student at the University of Maryland, where black students weren't hired and black students weren't able to find apartments in the community. Having grown up with overt racism and anti-Semitism, I was not a stranger to mindless hatred. I could not accept the politics that ignored the lack of humanity embodied in what I saw around me. I fought for tenant rights and rent control in Tacoma Park. As a teacher at Rolling Terrace Elementary School, I taught kids in a community too many had forgotten. I saw firsthand the effects of poverty and policy failures. When you teach children every day for whom every dollar their parents spends on rent is a dollar that's not available for food, clothes, or fun, when you come to see how business transactions like paying rent can impact every aspect of a person's life, you will start weighing these things in a moral sense. I did. I've maintained that activism and still see myself as an activist. I serve the interests of people and I try not to overpromise. I recognize I don't have magical powers. Sometimes I can't do what I'd like to do because that's just the way it is, unfortunately. But I don't think that just because you're an elected representative that the job description requires you to defend institutions, policies, or practices just because they exist. So I've told my staff at all levels that if there are better ways of doing things, I'm not afraid to change. Some people see changing as a confession of errors. I see change as a growth opportunity. At my core, I know Montgomery County is the best place to raise a family, to open a business, and to look to the future. It is absolutely true. In my life, I've been able to travel all over the country. I have never been in a place that feels like Montgomery County. And I am so glad that I chose to raise my family here. I'm appreciative of all those who helped us to get where we are today. All of us stand on the shoulders of others. When we talk about equity and inclusion, you have to think about Ike Leggett and the role he played in broadening the table in Montgomery County. So I take no credit for inventing the path. I'm just traveling on it because it's the right path to be on. I look forward to the work and the partnership ahead with all of you. I know that Montgomery County's best days lie ahead, and we're going to get there together. Thank you.